Welcome to the TH Fantasy Football Show, hosted by Pestle and Ed.
The Broncos had one of last season's surprise packages for fantasy football in their new franchise quarterback. But a couple of moves again this year mean they are firmly in our consideration for our redraft drafts this season. But Ed, we've alluded to him already. Shall we start off with Mr. Bo Nix?
Yes, why not? I mean, while Jaden Daniels took the limelight, Bo Nix managed to put in one of the most impressive rookie seasons for a quarterback in a long time. And any other year, he would very much have been the star of that draft. Let's not forget, he didn't throw a touchdown pass until week 4, but he finished with 29 passing touchdowns, the second most all-time by a rookie. You can look at some stats, his yards per attempt, his completion percentage, maybe pick some holes. Plus, there was a suggestion that he was a bit of a flat-track bully, struggling against the top defenses, but I think most quarterbacks struggle against the better defenses, so I discount that criticism. The positives far outweigh the concerns when it comes to Bo Nix. The work he got through on his feet was maybe a bit of a surprise as well. 430 yards and 4 touchdowns. But it all led to that really impressive rookie season where he ended up as QB7 and is translated into an ADP of QB8. So, you know, he's expected to reproduce that this season. It's going to be very interesting to see how he progresses this year, as all eyes will be on him. He's not really had massive upgrades to his weapons. So I think to maintain a top 10 position from a fantasy perspective would be good enough for Bo Nix and for his fantasy managers.
Yeah, I think when you look at the fact that for a rookie QB to return you 19.4 fantasy points per game, when, say, he was drafted ADP QB 24, that's essentially not drafted in most redraft leagues because certainly ones we play in, not everyone drafts 2 quarterbacks. His stat of 29 passing touchdowns, the second most ever for a rookie quarterback, is quite impressive as well. I disagree. I think the couple of players we're going to talk about do represent a reasonable upgrade when it comes to him getting rid of the ball quicker in some short yardage situations. He has a little bit of rushing work in him. So we saw he ended up with 4 rushing touchdowns, 430 rushing yards. Not enough to call him dual threat, but he is on the cusp of having that 4 rushing touchdowns you cannot sniff at all. And that really, really helps. I do feel confident he will return on where he's being drafted at the moment. But we've also seen several times where that drop-off in year 2 can be significant when a player has a surprising rookie year, especially with quarterbacks. So I do think there is a little bit of buyer beware with Bo Nix. But I think the more probable route is that we see more of the same, if anything, just a little bit more confident.
Yeah, I think he's more likely to have a better season, I would say, than to drop off. I think everything's in his favour, including the coaching setup in Denver. And Denver as a team are stronger, and I expect them to have a decent run. So yeah, I fully expect Bo Nix to be very solid again.
Yeah, I agree. The coaching setup definitely comes into that as well. When you have players that are in good situations, the probability that it works out, obviously, is a little bit higher for them. One of the upgrades that they've had at running back is a player that I've lost how long we spent talking about it. Well, I have how long you spent listening to me talk about him. A player that I was adamant would have fancy value last year, and a lot of people were sleeping on, and he still had a great season. I'll build him up enough. Mr. J.K. Dobbins, take it away.
Yeah, I feel at times over the last couple of years we should maybe have renamed ourselves the J.K. Dobbins Show because you just never ever shut up about him. But yeah, he did come good last year. He missed 4 games, but it was still a very encouraging one from J.K. Dobbins as he established himself as the starting Chargers running back quite comfortably. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't need major surgery, which was encouraging. And,
was nice.
And he put up some good numbers. Maybe a bit surprising that the Chargers decided to move on. But the ears of fantasy managers, especially a certain Mr. Pestle, pricked up when he signed that 1-year contract with Denver in June. I mean, his yards per carry have dropped from his early Ravens days. He was up as high as 5.8 at the Ravens, and he's down to just 3.8 yards per carry from week 3 last year. But I can't believe that J.K. Dobbins is only 26, and he's still got the talent to be a productive back for Denver, certainly this year and certainly for another year or two as well, if they decide to stick with him. He had 7 RB1 weeks last year, finishing up as RB24 despite missing those 4 games. Surely his current ADP of RB42 will drop as we enter draft season, now that we've got some certainty of where he's going to be, because that was affected by the kind of, we weren't sure where he was going to end up. He does have competition, who we'll come on to talk about in a minute. But I need to give you 5 minutes on Dobbins, don't I?
Oh, right. Let's settle him. JK. So I've got loads of shares of JK Dobbins in best ball drafts already this season. So every best ball league that we've been drafting early this off season, before that JK Dobbins news broke, I signed him up because it just seemed logical that someone was going to acquire him and he would land in a decent situation. Yes, there is competition, but we'll talk about in a moment. But I think what the Dobbins will see this year will be a fitter, more up to game speed Dobbins saw last year. I can't remember which game it was, but there was one where he was just in the open field and he got caught quite comfortably for pace, about 20, 30 yards away, that just wouldn't have happened a couple of years ago. But I think we forget how significant the surgeries and the injuries have been over the last couple of years. A full off season, a fit J.K. Dobbins could be very exciting. And absolutely, I agree. There is no way I see that he does not repay you his value at current ADP. And like he says, well, I think that number will come down as we move through the off season. And I would be comfortable playing him as a weekly flex option, depending upon how the next player we're going to talk about comes through as well.
Indeed. Yeah. RJ Harvey is the competition we've alluded to. The quarterback turned running back was drafted in the second round of this year's rookie draft. And there is a big chance that he emerges as RB1 in Denver this season. We just have to wait and see. His college numbers over the last 3 years have been nothing short of absolutely insane. Not just as a running back, but he's also proved very effective as a receiver. He was a real workhorse for his college side. His redraft value has taken a bit of hit with the signing of Dobbins. He's currently going as RB22. And again, I wonder whether we'll see a situation as the season approaches, they kind of like coalesce together around about kind of RB30 as they take value away from each other. I mean, even if Dobbins stays fit, which is far from guaranteed, I still think Harvey could become the lead back for Denver. They clearly invested that draft capital in him. So it's not guaranteed that that Dobbins is going to get the workload to remain as RB1. I mean, there's no other real competition for either of them at running back. So I think from Harvey's perspective, the sky's the limit when it comes to dynasty. And you could be looking at a bit of a steal if he does emerge as RB1 this year. You're always going to favour Dobbins, but who, if you had to say now, who do you think by, let's say week 6, who's going to be the lead back in Denver, or will it be a committee?
I think it'll be fairly even split by then. I do think it will cross over. I think Dobbins will start as 1A, Harvey will be 1B, and I think they'll probably be about equal, maybe week 6 to 10. I think latter part of the season will be at Harvey that comes through. It's the amount Sean Payton talks about Harvey in the pass game that is really exciting from a fantasy perspective. And we know that Sean Payton knows his stuff when it comes to pass catching backs. I think we could see a bit. I've got them both down as weekly flex play running backs. And I think we could end up with a Monty Gibbs light sort of situation where they're both giving you value given weeks. Would I put him in the line at week 1? Probably not. I'd want to wait till I've seen a little bit first, whereas I would put Dobbins in week 1. It will then be knowing at which point to stop putting Dobbins in because you think Harvey is going to be the lead back. It's one of those interesting storylines I think we'll see emerge as we move through the season. But yeah, a big fan of RJ Harvey. I know lots of people had him as a bit of a sleeper pick, and as soon as he landed in Denver, his stock in dynasty startups skyrocketed. I do agree that I think he'll probably come a little bit closer towards being drafted in the late 20s for running backs. And I think Dobbins will probably be a little bit more in the low 30s. I don't think there'll be a huge amount between them with ADP as we get towards the end of the offseason.
Agreed.
Before we move on, as always, please do take a moment to subscribe, give us a like and a share as well. And whilst you're here, why not go and check out one of the other 31 deep dive shows as we profile all 32 teams through the off season. But up next, Ed, is wide receiver, a player that had his games last year, but a player we seem to have been speaking about forever as far as potentially breaking out and being a bona fide fantasy stud year after year after year. Are we kind of those days past us now, or is this the year?
Well, up until week 7 last year, it looked like Courtland Sutton was absolutely blowing his opportunity to establish himself as a true wide receiver one. But in the same way that Bo Nix grew into the season, so did Sutton. After week 7, he had 4 wide receiver 1 weeks. He caught 6 touchdown passes and was comfortably a top 10 receiver overall in those final kind of 10 weeks. So he did eventually grow into the season and was very solid. He's got competition in Denver, who we'll talk about in a minute. But he's a player of, I think, 6'4", and he's got decent agility. So he'll hoover up most of the intermediate targets and the jump balls that should see him thrive in Peyton's offense. So I expect him to continue to have a very solid output and be reliable from a fantasy perspective. I think his ADP undervalues him slightly. He's going off the board at wide receiver 23. And is this a bit of a hot take? But I think there is a route to Sutton being a top 10 receiver. I don't think it will happen, but I disagree with your wide receiver 24. I think he will be much more like last year because I think he grew into the offense, and another year with Bo Nix, he is a very clear wide receiver one without massive competition at tight end. Again, we'll come on to that. But yeah, I think you're massively underselling him with wide receiver 24.
I don't see any way he gets close to top 10.
No, that's a hot take. Hot takes are meant to be hot take. I could have said top 15 or top 20, but that would have been lukewarm. But yeah, hot takes have to be hot, Mark. We know that they can't be.
It's still, yeah. I don't even see a route to. I really, really don't. I think he's been
definitely
so
won't be 24. 100%. That I think. I don't know who you've got ahead.
I'm feeling a fancy prop coming in. I've got 23 of them in a minute.
I'm very confident he'll be in the top 20.
I just think that the competition with J.K. Dobbins, and yeah, once again, we're looking at different sorts of receptions, obviously, but Dobbins will get some passing work. RJ Harvey, we've spoken about the passing work. A tight end coming in who's going to take away targets as well. I think we'll see a progression from the offense last year that won't rely on Courtland Sutton being passed the ball quite as much as well. So I think that's kind of coming into play. I just think so. Looking at players going around him for me I'm look at players I've got above him. Terry McLaurin, I'm happy we'll finish above him. DK Metcalf, I think we'll finish above him. DJ Moore, I think will. Mike Evans, Devontae. Just there's no one I've got above him.
All of those I don't think will finish above him because I think you need to look at the type of receiver that he is and compare him to the other receivers in Denver. And he's quite unique, and that's why he gets a lot of the work. And the receivers that you mentioned, like Dobbins, I think they'll hoover up some of the other work. But I think Sutton established himself last year, and I expect him to continue to progress. I could be wrong. But yeah, those other receivers that you mentioned, I don't think they're in as good a situation as Courtland Sutton.
It's not often we disagree, but
it's not.
I strongly disagree with you on this one. But I think we'll work this in. We'll work this into a fantasy prop of some degree when we get into the season. Continue the disagreement. This is similar to our Hollywood Brown reference earlier on our Chiefs show. I didn't want to give Marvin Mims his own graphic. Why does he deserve one?
I don't know if he deserves
other
one.
than the picture we've got of him there. That's the only thing that justifies it.
Quite a cool picture. And we normally have a graphic for the second receiver. So beyond that,
not the only reason.
I'm not really going to justify him with the stats. I mean, I think I'm being kind when I say he's had a mixed first couple of seasons in the NFL. He's just not had the playing time to become fantasy relevant. He's averaged 10.3 yards after the catch per reception. And in real life NFL, he's established himself as a return specialist, and I think he's got onto the Pro Bowl as a result of that. He had 3 wide receiver 1 weeks last year, but 1 was in week 18, so that doesn't count, as all fantasy players know. But after that, there wasn't much at all. Will he get the workload? Probably not. So his current ADP of wide receiver 56, going really late off your board, is probably about right.
Mims is the perfect example of evidence of when coach speak means nothing during the off-season. Because we heard Sean Payton say a lot last year about getting Mims involved more in the game and having more of the ball when it actually went down. So his snap rate went down significantly. He never played more than 50% of snaps in a game. So, yeah, for those reasons, I'm not interested in the slightest. It will be a case of, if I'm looking to the waiver wire to bring someone in, because I've not got depth on my bench for a wide receiver, and he's there, he could be a plug-in wide receiver potentially during bye weeks. But yeah, nothing more. The rest of the depth, I suppose we're making the case for the Courtland Sutton comments earlier, though, when we look at the rest of the depth chart as well, aren't we? And we bring up the next 3 because they're there.
Yeah, Devon Valley, a promising rookie season. I remember us talking about him a few times last year. He had a mid-season run of kind of double-figure fantasy scores that hinted at a bigger involvement. So, might be one to watch on the waiver wire. Pat Bryant, disappointing rookie season, and can't see him being involved much unless there are injuries. Troy Franklin, similar. Any thoughts on any of them?
I think Troy Franklin, he was last year. We watched him drop and drop and drop in the actual NFL draft. I was still hoping there was a route to him potentially being wide receiver 2 on this team. He only had 28 receptions. So if Sean Payton doesn't see that route for him to be heavily involved, I don't think we can justify putting him in our fantasy lineups as well. So no, all 3 of those. I'm sure we'll talk about one of them at some point as a waiver wire pickup. If anyone ahead misses time, as always, they could be. But no, there's nobody I would even consider drafting there to any degree, especially also when we see the upgrade at tight end that we've got in Denver.
Indeed, yeah, definitely. It's nothing. Definitely an upgrade at tight end in Evan Engram. Injury ruined last season for him, and he'll be hoping that change of scenery in Denver will see him bounce back this year. After his top 5 rookie season for the Giants, he struggled there in what was a struggling franchise, but he really did achieve his potential with that move to Jacksonville, especially in 2023, where he finished as tight end 2 overall with 114 catches and just shy of 1,000 yards. I'm not really sure he's going to return to that peak, but he's a huge upgrade for Bo Nix at tight end, and he'll be a very reliable pass-catching target, especially when you consider the limited receiving core, as we just discussed, behind Courtland Sutton. He's going to need a few more touchdowns to approach tight end 1 value, and where he's getting drafted as tight end 9 is probably fair. Which is what you projecting him as well. So yeah, big upgrade for Bo Nix. Will do you a service at tight end, but I would not expect fireworks from a fantasy perspective.
And as we've said on several of the shows as well, tight end 9 does not equate in the same way to number 9 in any other position, because the drop off once you get to around tight end 6, 7 for consistency means that at that point you need a couple of tight ends that you're rotating, or you're potentially in the streaming mix, depending on how you draft. But we've seen him do well, and we've discussed already after Sutton, who is the next reliable receiver there. Engram has his route to being the second most targeted receiver on that team. depending what happens at running back as well. Yeah, he's an interesting one. And if you want to leave your tight end pick a bit later, it's someone you could roll the dice on. But I think from drafting Engram, I'm taking another tight end as well, quite possibly. As we look at the Broncos' hopes for this season in general, though, what are you expecting? Do you think that they are going to march on with year 2 of Bo Nix, or do you still have question marks?
Yeah, of course there are question marks, but I think that it's quite exciting to watch in Denver and in that division as a whole. The Chiefs, for a few years, had it pretty much to themselves, didn't they? But you've got the Chargers progressing, the Broncos progressing, and arguably even the Raiders progressing. We'll wait and see on that one. But yeah, Broncos have got a good chance at the playoffs, and who knows after that. Certainly, Bo Nix is their franchise quarterback, which is what they've been desperate for. So yeah, it'll be exciting to watch how he progresses year 2.
Amazing. Well, that brings us to the end of the Broncos and to the end of our AFC deep dives before we move on to the NFC. As always, as we finish, please do take a moment to go, depending on when you watch this, go and check out our other shows. There'll be plenty there available for this point. And if you're watching later in the off-season, we will have all 32 teams available for your consumption to help you out with your fantasy drafts. But as always, that's all from me. It's all from Ed. And Malcolm, take us home.
You have been listening to Pestle and Ed of TH Fantasy Football. For more content, follow TH_fantasy_NFL on Instagram and Twitter.